All right, you guys, welcome back. So, the fastest front wheel drive car I've ever driven was Lorenzo's R56 JCW Mini Cooper. At that time, it was right around 450 wheel horsepower. Just insane. The car had so much torque, it wanted to toss you off the road. Now, when we talked about that car, the word daily got tossed around a little bit, which is kind of funny, kind of made me chuckle a little bit, but that's exactly why these two cars exist right here. This is the 2022 Countryman SE All4 plug-in hybrid, and this right here is a Paceman All4, but it's not stock. This one's been modified as well. So today we're gonna find out how these two cars deliver torque in such a way where it's a little bit more dailyable, a little bit more manageable. Let's go for a drive. So what do you get when you have a confused European auto manufacturer who has been known for decades in creating some of the most fun hot hatchbacks money can buy? When they're building a Clubman, a Countryman, a Mini Cooper S that's a two-door, but you can also get it in a four-door. Some of them have all-wheel drive, some of them don't. What do you get? Well, in the height of it all, this is what we got. This is a Mini Paceman. We will put this in sport mode. Changes up the factory tune a little bit, and we should be able to get a little bit more pops and bangs out of the 1.6 here. Now this is the N18. This is a different engine, slightly different engine than the N14 that was in the older JCWs. I mean, already the thing's way more planted. All right, let's give her the beans. Wow. I mean, the boost threshold is ridiculous. Once you shift gears, immediately back into boost. Within a few hundred RPM, we're back at full boost. There's not like a huge ramp up in torque, which is in stark contrast to that other JCW I drove. Now, spool is the name of the game here. What Lorenzo wanted to do with this car is, like I mentioned, create the perfect daily for here in Canada, especially in the fall and the winter. You want to be able to drive your turbocharged Mini, if you love the chassis, all year round, right? And what you don't want in slick conditions is torque steer. So instead of torque steer, what the front wheel drive Minis do so well, especially because a lot of them, including this car, don't actually have a real LSD in the front. It's a brake based, it's basically just vectoring torque with the brakes. But in this car here, it's so manageable. And yes, this is 400 horsepower. What we're feeling here, up to 6,500 RPM. It's about 285 wheel horsepower.
Hey guys, Lorenzo here at RPM Power. I'm pretty sure you guys seen me before on this channel. Presented you about 2 years ago our green crazy 450 wheel horsepower R56, but it's not about that today. I believe it's a very special vehicle, not very often to be seen here in British Columbia. And I've been trying to get one for the longest time, and finally it happened, and we got it as a shop vehicle to do some developments. The scene behind the N18 motor all-wheel drive platform kind of felt like it's been left aside for the longest time, and we got customers from all over the world asking us, can you guys make something on these vehicles to improve the way they drive? What we got here is a huge difference in between the front-wheel drive R56 and an all-wheel drive. It feels like a bigger brother with a more mature character. The fact that you have the ability to put all the power down, you kind of like going against the idea where the R56 you have too much torque, it makes the car not drivable, where here is like, where do we get all the torque because now we can put it down. So the platform is still in development, still some testing, still some understanding of limitations of the powertrain. So far, the car started with a 360 wheel horsepower. However, it did not feel its driving character to what I personally understand and I would want this car to feel like. So it's been downgraded, 285 wheel horsepower, 310 foot-pounds of torque, still on a factory motor, still on a factory transmission and clutch. Let's have Marcus go for a drive and see what we find out.
But it's funny because when you really get the turbo hot and you let off the throttle, you can hear it pop like somewhere midway in the exhaust, and then it's almost like it progresses towards the rear of the car and eventually then pops like right at the exit, right at the exhaust tip. I mean, the pops sound like they're happening inside the vehicle right now. So let's say third gear here, 2,500 RPM. And by 3, we're at 18 PSI. No open wastegate or anything. It's actually kind of nice at full throttle. The sound doesn't change a whole lot. We've got KW V3s. But then again, you guys, the car actually does feel quite a bit heavier than the R56 Mini. I believe it weighs about 3,250 pounds here. So it's still in the class. Like, I would still consider this one of the big modern Minis, but it being a two-door looks a little bit better. It's a longer wheelbase than an R56 by about 4 inches, but not as long as the Countryman. 23 PSI there. So this one is using pump gas, but it's on water meth. I mean, torque rolls on beautifully. This car, with anyone else, anything but a professional driver, on a relatively kind of smooth B road like this is gonna be just about as fast, I feel like, as that JCW in the proper hands, especially when you keep it above 4,000 RPM, 3,500 RPM. Like I said, the boost threshold is ridiculous, but there's just so much more, it's so much more predictable when you're coming out of a corner. You guys, remember in the remake of The Italian Job, that guy Wrench, Mark Wahlberg's like, hey man, can't tell you what's going in these Minis, but we need 3 really fast Minis that can do anything. And then Wrench is like, no, I got you.
You got yourself a sweet ride now, Charlie.
Lorenzo's Wrench. Lorenzo's like a real life, much smarter version and much more valuable version of Wrench in The Italian Job, okay? He builds the fastest Minis. Their entire team of shops that are working together around the globe, they're building some of the fastest Minis in the world. Not only that, but incredibly reliable Minis as well. I do love it here. The car's still light enough where lift off, chuck it in, you can still feel the rear end. Now, in the Countryman, no, the rear end's it's very numb. The rear end's gone. In here, we still have enough feel. So many pops. I'll open the window so.
So, welcome to RPM Power Workshop. What we got here is got a couple versions of turbos that went into the R&D process. Obviously, we have our #1 product that it's been flawless. This kit was put through a hell of a test and I did not find its limit. I found the limit on an open deck block, which cracked 2 sleeves in it. However, did not max out the capacity output of this R400. R56 has enough product developed behind it. We kind of like master what we can do with that in terms of ECU management, power output, so on and so far, and even torque management. It's a lot going on. However, one of the vehicles that has been left aside were the R60, R61s, all-wheel drive cars with N18 motor. From personal experience, when we tuned these cars, we never had good, successful feedback from clients that is happy the way it spools. Yeah, happy with the torque, not happy the way it spools. It happy the way it spools, not happy with the top end. So on and so far, all kind of variants based on the hybrid turbos available on the market. So we kind of like, okay, let's figure this out. Maybe we can make a product truly oriented for the all-wheel drive cars. Besides the R300 turbo, we're gonna talk about it in a bit. I have this wonderful turbo as well from a company in UK, Turbo Technics. What's cool about this unit, it is capable. We've done really well with it. We did 350 wheel horsepower on one of the customer's vehicles. The nice part of it, it bolts on straight to the factory exhaust manifold. However, it does not work well outside the box. It has a big compressor wheel where it kind of hits its efficiency map where factory fuel system is literally at the edge. So there is quite a bit of work to make this unit run right. So what we did is we basically used the R400 MPI package with a boost control package. It's kind of like a mid-ground in between big R400 kit and a plug-and-play hybrid. So like let's see what it does. Got it to 360 wheel horsepower and 320 foot-pounds of torque. However, it was funny to find out these numbers. Before I got the car on the dyno, I normally do a little bit of tuning like on the back roads just to get some baseline so we don't spend entire day on the dyno. Drove it for like a couple months and kind of left it where I felt like I'm driving a hardtop at like 270 wheel horsepower, 270 foot-pounds of torque. Booked the dyno, took it on the dyno, and the first pull was 330 wheel horsepower and 320 foot-pounds of torque. And that was like, wow. I did not feel that this car has 330 wheel horsepower. If that was on a hardtop, that feels amazing. Feels like that thing is moving really fast. So that was a little bit disappointing that the car felt so slow with these kind of numbers. And the biggest impact on that was the way this unit spools. So when you have all-wheel drive, now you can put all the torque down, but now you don't have the torque down low. So the power band was shifted so high where this guy would do great from 4,200 RPM to 7,000 RPM. But driving around town, it was not a pleasant experience. The car felt sluggish. Great unit, however, definitely not suited for the all-wheel drive car. So we took it off. We decided to put our R300 and put it through the test. Surprisingly, to find out, with not a lot of effort, we managed to keep the same torque as the bigger boy. However, it happened 1,000 RPM earlier in the power band. It suits a car that is driven in the city, is driven like a daily normal car, because there's virtually no lag and it starts to make torque way down low and it carries power all the way to the red line. So with no effort, 285 wheel horsepower, 310 foot-pounds of torque, still on a stock motor. Pretty impressive. However, if you have one of these cars and you plan to go into the 300 horsepower range on the all-wheel drive cars, there must be fueling support. So the Paceman, for that reason, got equipped with port injection. It does have meth injection, and it also has ethanol support. Reason behind was to have all three options available on the vehicle, so when you put it through a test, you kind of like on the fly can switch on and off different systems. With methanol, I did not try it. I tried it with water methanol to help with cooling and a little bit of a fueling, and I'm quite surprised that it doesn't take a lot just to help the factory fuel trims to be in a happy zone. But nothing works as good as like a secondary port injection. Is absolutely drama free. You fill it up at the gas pump and it does all the work, and you never need to monitor or deal with anything. If you drive the vehicle on a daily basis, you kind of want to have your power where you spend time at, in lower gears, low RPM range. If you build a track car, which I don't see the Paceman being a track car or a Countryman, I think it's a great suit for the application. And anything more than this requires properly built cylinder head, it requires bottom end, it requires a lot more. But outside the box, I'm very pleased to have this unit fully complete and being able to do what it does. There's lots of customers already driving it on it, and the feedback has been great, so we're gonna keep making them to support the community. What can I say? I just want to say thank you to Chris at Spectrum Motorsport, a very good friend of ours, and he is so brilliant when it comes to turbochargers development. And we're lucky to have this unit today because he participated in making this little unit what it is. So next thing is we're gonna bolt on the R400 kit on the Paceman, and with help from Spectrum Motorsport, we're gonna build a turbo suitable specifically for the all-wheel drive cars. We want to have it spooling like this guy, but to be able to carry 300 foot-pounds of torque through the entire rev range. And we're passionate about this, so we're not giving up. We're gonna make a cool car out of the all-wheel drive chassis, then we're done. And we're taking on the F56.
Now these two vehicles deliver torque in two very different ways. So the Countryman I'm driving today is, of course, as well, all-wheel drive. It is not, however, the JCW model. So what I'm driving today is the plug-in hybrid version of the Countryman, but it's still all-wheel drive. And when compared to that factory JCW Paceman in stock form, they're right around the same horsepower, within 3 horsepower. This one I'm driving today, combined gasoline from the 1.5 liter 3-cylinder turbo engine in combination with the electric motor powering the rear wheels, makes 221 horsepower and 285 pound-feet of torque. So quite a bit more torque than the factory Paceman, but of course it delivers it instantaneously. And while I have not driven the JCW Countryman, which has quite a bit more horsepower, close to 300, and quite a bit more than 300 pound-feet of torque, now this does have a longer wheelbase than that Paceman, and the Paceman's kind of an interesting car because, in my opinion, it's one of the only, if not the only, properly sized, somewhat still, modern Mini with all-wheel drive and a manual. Here today, this Countryman plug-in hybrid is a good example of a confused Mini. While I think it's a great vehicle, during my week of driving, we have averaged 42.8 miles to the gallon so far, and that's mostly driving around as much as I possibly can on EV only, which this can do 32 kilometers in electric only. So it's a good combination of both. Well, yes, this can do 32 kilometers electric only. If it's outside your city range, yes, you'll still get great fuel economy. And of course, the battery is constantly charging via regen braking whenever it can. You will be using quite a bit of fuel, especially if you want to put your foot down, use the e-boost, the rest of the juice in the battery to power those rear wheels, and drive how you would normally expect to drive if you want all that combined 221 horsepower, which is quite a bit. And when compared to the Paceman, it's instantaneous torque delivery. And what that does is it effectively masks any drivetrain loss, like Lorenzo talks about, with the turbo system in an all-wheel drive application. What this does well is it masks a little bit of that weight instantaneously. Off the line, you get great torque. Here we do have a couple options package placed on this Countryman. So with that, we get, of course, a leather steering wheel. We do get heated seats. We get the heads-up display on here, which is not really a real heads-up display. It's not actually projected on the road ahead of you. It's kind of projected somewhere on the hood via this screen that kind of raises up. And then, of course, we have the 8.8-inch touchscreen display here, widescreen, which is not the largest, but it's bright enough. It's very bright, actually. It's got great colors. And then, of course, you can control that from the controls down here. And then we do have the optional digital display that we saw in a couple of other Mini products in the center here, which, of course, displays your power levels and how much gas you have. This thing has an incredibly small fuel tank, and I mean, more than half of the tank can be filled with under $40 Canadian. Still, recommended minimum octane is 89. Much quicker than I was expecting from this transmission. But again, we don't have the tach here. We don't have a visual tach. I just had to keep my foot into it to discover where the engine would automatically shift itself, right? So that Cooper S badge that's on this car just confuses me a little bit, even though it does have a lot of the torque, especially in Mini standards, that would back up that name. Things I could do without: the E badges on either side. Of course, on the left side, that's where you charge up the vehicle. It has a matching E badge. On the right side, it's just there for looks, just to be symmetrical. And then we also have an E badge on the rear, and it's got a lot of chrome on it. I love the British Racing Green. I've got a lot of compliments on that. But the chrome has got to go, as Lorenzo has discovered in the Paceman. It looks a lot better without it. I love these seats. Absolutely love these leather seats here. They've got great bolstering. And it's cool because they've basically taken what would be in an ordinary Cooper S, properly sized Cooper S or Countryman, and stuck it in the plug-in hybrid. It gets great fuel economy, especially if you're in the city. But then, of course, the positive, the benefit on top of that is that gasoline-powered 3-cylinder still very economical. You'll constantly be recharging the battery and using a little bit of battery, and then your range isn't sacrificed. Anyways, thanks guys for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this quick dive. The R300 John Cooper Works Mini Paceman, RPM Power. You can check out all Lorenzo's stuffs, RPM Power, in the description below. Like I said, you guys, they build the fastest Mini Coopers on the planet right here in BC. And the all-wheel drive just adds another element, you know, less time spent with torque steer, more time spent with the torque pinning your spine into the back of the seat, which is what we love, especially here going into the winter.